Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and today I want to talk about community and the role that community can have on us in both positive and not so positive ways. First things first, community is something that we all have. It's something that we all need. And it's something that helps us find safety and security in this crazy roller coaster ride that we call life. One of the things that is so important for us is, being the social beings that we are, is having people around us and knowing that we are safe. In fact, I'm looking at Odin trying to get himself comfortable on the love seat behind me here. And one of the things that he kind of embodies is the value of having the community of Libby and myself in order to feel safe. If something happens that makes him question that safety, then he feels incredibly insecure. For such an anxious dog, this is something that actually does happen quite a bit. Lately, Libby has been pursuing a new hobby, and that is dice making. And some of the things that she uses for this hobby are not things that Odin is very fond of. And lately, he has been a little more afraid to be around her, especially when she has been near the locations where loud noises have been made with a pressure pot or an air compressor. And whenever that happens, he is either trying to hide somewhere, like under our bed, or he completely gloms up right next to me. And unfortunately, he even gets to the point where he shakes in fear and anxiety. This is something that happens to all of us if we do not feel safe and do not have a community that we can turn to. What can a community be? A community, probably one of the easiest ones to look at is our neighborhood. If you live in a city or a suburb, you will oftentimes have a lot of people living pretty close to you, and that can be your community. However, let's also be honest, we have so many people who don't even welcome new neighbors into the neighborhood. When Libby and I moved into this house, there was only one person who truly welcomed us into the neighborhood, and that was my mom, who used to live across the street from us. And that's a pretty ostracizing and isolating experience to have when you move into a brand new community and you just move in. No one comes to say hi, no one comes to welcome you into the neighborhood. When our neighbors next door to us moved in, I was very intentional about trying to welcome them in and make them feel like a part of this neighborhood. And I honestly don't know if anyone else in this neighborhood did such a thing. It is tied to our security, and it is also tied to a very ingrained tribal instinct that we have. If we just look at human history, one of the things that we often see is people will associate with individuals who are part of their tribe. You take a look at Native Americans, and you knew which tribe you're a part of, you knew which tribes were allies, you knew which tribes were enemies. And if you were away from your tribe, you were not in a very safe position. We even have with Europeans. If you were English, that was your tribe. If you were German, that was your tribe. If you were French, that was your tribe. If you were Spanish, that was your tribe. If you were Portuguese, that was your tribe. And A lot of this tribalism has unfortunately caused conflicts, especially when you take a look in the realms of skin color and religions. It is so easy to point out people who are not a part of your tribe and therefore not a part of your community based on how they talk, what they wear, what they believe, the color of their skin, the choices of clothing. If there are individuals who have very specific religious artifacts or articles of clothing that they wear, these are symbols that let us know whether someone is a part of our tribe or not. Unfortunately, in this much more connected world that we live in, thanks to a lot of modern technologies, tribalism is something that can be very detrimental. We see people expressing hate toward others who are doing things based on their own beliefs, their own culture, and because it is different, there is something wrong or weird or uncomfortable about it, and therefore we cannot associate ourselves with that group. It's as necessary as community is, it also can get to a very unhealthy level if we start comparing ourselves to others and looking at others as inferior to ourselves or as superior to ourselves. Hey, we're just going to take a quick little break here to just give you a reminder that if you are enjoying this podcast, then I would greatly appreciate it if you went to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts and just give the podcast a rating and a review. Now, that isn't to say that community is inherently bad. Again, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of community. For a lot of people, they find incredible connection and support from their faith communities. I know that when I was in the Christian church, it was very easy for me to join a church and then I would just be enveloped within a community where people were supportive, they were loving, they were helpful. And at the same time, as soon as I left that church, all of that community and that support just evaporated. I have found incredible community with my friends that I play Dungeons and Dragons and other games with. My friend Ben and my friends John and Dan and Katie and Brandon, they are my community with my partner Libby. We spend a lot of time together. This is where I find a lot of comfort. It's where I find a lot of security. It's where I find a lot of safety. And these are people that I want to spend time with. And we try and spend as much time as we can with each other. I have felt very seen and understood and accepted within this very small group of friends. And I love that. That's something that I need. I need that community. As much as I grew up believing that I was a lone wolf and I was perfectly comfortable just living by myself or being a hermit, just being me with my video games and my movies and my TV shows and whatever it is, there has always been that pull to have friends, to have people that I can share experiences with, to have people that can make me laugh, to have people who will be there for me when I am down, when I'm feeling depressed, people who will sit with me in my sadness and my grief. And let's also not forget the value of having friends in a community when you have a big life change, like I think of moving. I think it was about a year or two ago that my friends John and Dan bought their first house together. And it was really cool to see everyone from two different groups come together in order to help them move out of two different homes and a storage unit in order to get them moved into their new place. That's something that community can be very, very helpful for. We support each other. We find love, we find compassion. These are all great things that we can get from community. So if you are finding yourself lacking in community, or let's face it, I work with a lot of individuals who struggle to find community. If that is something that you are dealing with, then I want to encourage you the importance of not giving up on trying to find that community. A lot of the people that I have worked with as a coach are individuals who have some coping mechanism that is causing harm in their lives and their relationships, typically in the form of some unwanted sexual behavior like pornography use, and they really struggle to find community because one of the things that is very, very common with these people is they anticipate and are afraid that they will become ostracized if someone finds out about this unwanted behavior. So these people will mask. And I'm not talking, maybe it's similar to masking that happens with individuals who are autistic or those who have some kind of neurodivergence. But when I'm talking about masking, I mean they put on an appearance, they put on a performance. They will do and say whatever they need to in order to be accepted while hiding something deep down that they are afraid for people to find out about. And what happens is there is this constant fear that they experience that if someone finds out about whatever this maladaptive coping mechanism is, that they will be kicked out, they will be ostracized, they will be shunned. And so it can be very hard for them to find legitimate and accepting communities because there is something about them that they are keeping secret. Now, I have not been at all afraid to talk about my own struggles with pornography, self-sexual gratification, and these things that have caused a lot of harm to my partner and to other relationships as well. It was only when I started being honest with who I am and what I was struggling with, and I wasn't keeping secrets, that I started to find that I didn't need to have that mask. I didn't need to perform in order to find acceptance. So, this is where I often tell my clients that if they're struggling to find community, you need to keep looking. And the more honest you are about yourself and the more you are who you are, the more you will find acceptance for that, and the more you will be loved and appreciated for who you are. One of the things that I often do, in fact, this is something that I was talking with my friend Brandon about. He and I have been toying around with the idea of having Twitch channels and like working with each other to stream some video game content and just play and have fun. And he was struggling to come up with his alias. And not just his alias, but also how he wanted to present himself online. The best advice that I could give him is just be yourself. Because if we are anything other than ourselves, then it is an exhausting performance, and you kind of have to figure out, okay, how far do I go? What do I avoid saying? What shouldn't I say? What should I say? How should I present myself? What should I wear? What should I do? What are things that are on the table and things that are off the table? It makes me think of a Jim Gaffigan joke in one of his stand-ups where he says, have you ever had that awkward experience where you mix two different friend groups? And he jokes around saying, don't be surprised when you meet these people and suddenly I have a British accent. Because that's kind of the level that we will go to in order to find acceptance. But the person that you see or the person that you're hearing is the same person that you will experience when you meet me in person. With the exception that if I am talking to someone, I tend to be a little more jovial and joking, and I'm a different person when I have someone that I can feed off of. But you're going to get the same me regardless. I am going to show empathy and compassion. I'll be non-judgmental. I will be accepting and just be myself, because I don't want someone to accept me for who I'm not. I want someone to accept me for who I am. And I don't want to have to perform. I don't want to have to act. I don't want to be someone other than myself in order to find acceptance. I've done that for way too long. I have such a history of doing that, and it's miserable and it's exhausting. One more reminder that you can submit questions or even give me ideas for people that we can do a hero study on for a future episode. Just take a look in the description where you can find the link that takes you to my podcast page where you can send questions or ideas for heroes in the future. This takes me back to what I often stress with my clients. That is, continue to look for and find your community. I have clients who are Christian that feel like they can't be honest about who they are within their faith communities, because if they did admit that they had some kind of problem with watching pornography, they would be ostracized or judged or maybe even removed from their community. If that's something that you have experienced, then you might need to find your community somewhere else. You might need to find a place like some kind of step recovery group or some kind of online community where you can be honest and be yourself. Ideally, it would be great if you could have a community where you meet people in person instead of finding individuals who are online, because having that close proximity to people is something that is very important. It's not the same when the kind of interaction and connection you're having is through a phone, through a camera, through messages. Sometimes that's the only way that you can get that kind of community. However, there is also something truly wonderful about having a close physical proximity to these people that do love and accept you. I am looking forward to tomorrow, where my friend Ben and I are going to take our two dogs for a walk together. and then we'll come back over here. We'll let the dogs play in the backyard, and even though it is in September and the water in my pool is frigid cold, we're both going to go in the pool and we're just going to hang out. We'll talk, we'll enjoy the cold water because that's something that we both enjoy. And I'm looking forward to that. That's not something that I could get through Zoom, through WhatsApp, through Marco Polo, or anything like that, because it is electronic. There is still a distance. There is still something about being able to see the body language and tune in more closely to facial expressions that maybe you can't really pick up on a little screen. I mean, if you saw me in person right now, you'd probably be noticing that even though it's just me in my office talking into a microphone with a camera recording me, I am still fidgeting. My hands, I can't leave my hands just in my lap. It's like I'm constantly doing something with them. These are things that you miss out on. These are things that can be removed, that can be blocked, that can be they are things that can be intentionally hidden. So community is something that is important for all of us. It is something that helps us feel secure. It is something that helps us feel accepted. It is something that is a protective part of our nature. We are social animals. We need to have that kind of social connection. And if that's something that you have struggled to find, I think I've mentioned this on a previous episode, I wish it didn't take me into my 30s in order to find friends like Ben, Katie, Brandon, John, and Dan. Because these friends have been some of the best friends that I've ever had. And it took me over 30 years to find them. In fact, you can go back to episode 9 where I talk more at length about the different kinds of friendships that we have in life and how valuable it is to have those who are more long-lasting friendships. Please do not discredit the value of having a good, solid community where you are accepted and loved for who you are. Please do not discredit the value of having a community where you can be yourself, where you don't have to hide. Please, I implore you, if you do not have this community, and yes, it is so painful to put yourself out there and not find it, do not give up on finding this community. It is so important. It is so life-giving when you find it. And the only way you're not going to find it is if you give up. I hope that you have found this encouraging, and I look forward to having more candid conversations with you in the future. And just know, regardless of what you're going through, here at Between the Covers, you are loved, you are accepted, and there is no judgment coming from me to you. And until next time, live strong for today.